What a joy to meet with you on Sundays at Simple Church, and now it's also great to meet with you in your group. I hope you have already had a lot of fun together and feel connected with each other and with Christ. Now, during these next few minutes, what we want to do is to think more deeply about the disciple of Christ named Thomas. He was also called Didymus, which means a twin, so evidently he had another brother somewhere. But he was a fisherman from Capernaum, and all of the Gospels do not mention much about him. There are two major accounts of him with Jesus. First, when Jesus decided to go to Bethany to raise Lazarus from the dead, even though his life and his disciples' lives were in danger, yet he went. And Thomas said, "Well, okay, let us also go that we may die with him." Well, those words can sound kind of courageous, because I believe he was truly willing to die for Christ. But they were also sarcastic and somewhat pessimistic, because he too felt it was foolish to return to Bethany in Judea. After all, the religious leaders had just tried to kill Jesus there 3 days before his comment. And then second, we see Thomas after the resurrection being appeared to by Jesus with all the other disciples. That's over in John 20, verse 24. And it wasn't until a week after the resurrection that the disciples told Thomas that Jesus, their master and their teacher, was resurrected from the dead. Now, what's interesting is Thomas was a realist, and he couldn't believe that. After all, he saw Jesus die and be buried 10 days earlier. So the realist Thomas said that he had two qualifications for believing in Jesus' bodily resurrection. First, I must see visibly the nail marks in Jesus' hands. Then second, I must touch with my hands Jesus' side where the spear was. Well, it was a week that Jesus, after his resurrection, appeared to Thomas. So 8 days, really, from Resurrection Sunday, which we call Easter, Thomas and the disciples were there, and Jesus was right in the middle of them. Now, why did he wait a week? Before we go any further, I want us to stop right now and discuss two questions. The first one is this: why do you think Jesus waited 7 days to appear before Thomas with his disciples? And then the second question is, what doubts do you have that affect your ability to live out your faith more fully? Let's discuss it together. It's interesting, isn't it, to stop for a moment and just really evaluate our faith level? Well, I believe during our lives, God will allow us to wrestle with doubt. Because as we learned Sunday, doubt is often the mother of faith. I think that's such a powerful statement. Let me say it again. Doubt is often the mother of faith. So God always wants our faith to grow. And that means sometimes he will wait for the right time to answer our doubts and our questions according to his sovereign will, because he knows that always increases our faith. It's interesting that even though Thomas had doubts about the resurrection, he did not stop meeting with the rest of the disciples. And then just at the right time, when Thomas was struggling the most with doubt, Jesus gave him the proof of his bodily resurrection. Jesus asked Thomas to stop doubting and start believing in him, and that is exactly what Thomas did. And when his doubts were answered, boy, he believed in Jesus readily and joyfully, and that's when Thomas made his greatest faith statement. He said, "My Lord and my God." So here's a key thought. Uncertainty, doubts, and questions are not our permanent situations. And they can, if we don't rebel, They can lead us to an answer if we're genuinely and willingly asking Jesus to show us his way, and then we wait on him for the answer. So what happened to Thomas? Yeah, it's an amazing story because he went on to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ around the world. He traveled to various parts of the world, including all the way to India. And church tradition tells us that he traveled to a place called Malabar, Kerala in India. That was around 52 AD. And he continued to preach the gospel there until he was martyred for witnessing for Christ. Traditions also indicate that when the Portuguese came to India in the 16th century, they found the Christian churches that were started by Thomas. The church in India, because of Thomas' obedience to the Lord, and because he believed, the church in India survived through 15 centuries of doubts and persecution. It's really amazing. All of that was started by a doubter. What a turnaround. That's God's grace. And it gives us great hope for God's use of our lives, even though there are times that I'm sure you and I may doubt. Well, here's the great truth that keeps us moving forward in our spiritual growth. God can change our doubts into faith, our uncertainty into assurance, and our questions into triumphs if we continue to ask and seek him with all of our heart. So right here, I want us to take two more discussion questions and let them just guide us in some discussion for the next few minutes. The first one is this: how has God used a past struggle with disbelief to strengthen your faith? And the second question is, do you feel like your faith is overcoming your doubt, or like your doubt is defeating your faith? Now, for our final few minutes together, let's consider one more part of the story of Thomas. Much Christian art, and I'm sure you've seen some of it, it has depicted Thomas reaching out to put his hand in Jesus' side or to touch his wounds. But in John 20, verse 29, Jesus himself says that Thomas believed because he had seen Jesus, not because he had touched Jesus. The impression is that Thomas declared, "My Lord and my God," in response to seeing Jesus, not because he did what he said he wanted to do, and that is to touch his hands and his side. Thomas' declaration is his confession of his own personal faith. The most famous doubter of the resurrection has become a believer. And notice, though that Thomas did not simply declare the fact of the resurrection, rather Thomas actually sees deeper into what the resurrection truly means. His declaration is an expression of the full meaning of Christ's life and death and resurrection. What he's saying is not only is Jesus truly God, as John's gospel has insisted from the beginning. You remember John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. That's Jesus. But Thomas has acknowledged what this implies for himself personally. Note the personal pronouns, my Lord and my God. Thomas confesses to the risen Christ that now he belongs to Jesus. And Thomas will serve Jesus as his Lord and Master, and Thomas will worship and adore Jesus as God incarnate. Thomas is the fulfillment of Jesus' words in John 5:23. Everyone will honor the Son just as they honor the Father. And the final words of Jesus in the story are these: blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Those words are an invitation to future generations, including you and me. We may not have the privilege of seeing the risen Christ in person, but we are assured that we will be blessed. That word means happy. We will be blessed if we believe and live by faith. So there's a great question for each of us. And I want to close with this. Do you believe? You see, each of us have to answer that question personally. And I hope you can say with Thomas, yes, I believe. Jesus is my Lord, and Jesus is my God. Well, here are two final questions to discuss. First is, how would it change things if you and I saw our doubts as opportunities to grow deeper in our relationship with Christ and not really a reason for alarm? Remember, an attitude of gratitude will drive out any attitude of fear from our minds. That's so important to remember. And then secondly, what is the one question that you would ask God? And I think this is such an interesting question. What is the one question you would ask God if He were sitting next to you right now? Remember, He is right next to each of us, because He promised, where two or more are gathered in His name, He's among us. And He'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us.